Okay, so what does this MacBook versus Windows laptop decision look like at the beginning of 2024? And to answer it, I'm going to be looking at, first of all, why MacBooks until now have been by far the best option for entry-level laptops. And then we'll look at why specifically recently Windows laptops have gotten really good, pretty much ever since Intel released their Meteor Lake architecture, which at the same time, coincidentally, a bunch of really cool laptops have come out with really unique designs. So for the people who have a really easy decision picking between the two, let's get those out of the way first. If you're getting a laptop for school or for work or anything that requires you to use a piece of software that's exclusively on one operating system or the other, then get that operating system. Please don't get the other one and expect to be able to dual boot whatever software you want on the other operating system, because you're going to end up with a bunch of other issues and you're going to end up paying a lot more than you initially planned to. Now here's the reason why every time someone wants a recommendation for an entry-level laptop, I've pretty much just instantly recommended getting a MacBook Air. Pretty much ever since Apple released M1 for the first time. That recommendation became even more solid when the M2 MacBook Air came out with thinner bezels, a better design, and overall better build quality. I was convinced that anyone who doesn't really mind what operating system they're using, they're okay with whether it's Mac or Windows, and whoever doesn't need a specific software on a specific operating system should just get a MacBook Air, the M2 MacBook Air. Because to be honest, what most people are doing is just using a browser or writing up documents, and the MacBook Air is going to do that just fine. That was pretty much me a little over a year ago when I got the M2 MacBook Air for the first time. And the best things about this laptop that make it so good are the design, the performance, and the battery life. So the design has been kind of a strong point for Apple laptops for a while and still is. I know we live in a world now where laptops like the XPS series have come out recently, and I would admit that those laptops are probably the only ones that look better than the MacBooks, at least subjectively. But even then, the build quality of MacBooks is kind of on a different level. And it sounds like something that isn't thought about that much, because it isn't, but I think it's so important to like the end user experience, and we shouldn't underrate it so much. They have this aluminium build all the way around, and it's just kind of hard to explain, but they just feel really sleek, and that's just really important to me. But anyways, the second thing is the performance. Definitely one of the best performing laptops for this price, and that's pretty much a product of the fact that Apple's M2 hardware is really good now. And after editing a bunch of videos at this point, albeit in 1080p and not really doing any complicated adjustments, I've never felt it getting warmer than usual. It actually handles it really well. And it literally doesn't have a fan inside, so it can't get loud. However, Intel, close to 2 months ago now at this point, announced their Meteor Lake architecture, which has been one of the biggest strides in the right direction for Windows laptops for a while. And I'm happy they finally did that, because it's finally made the Windows laptops that have come out ever since then way more competitive. To the point where now, if someone asked me for a laptop recommendation, at least for entry-level laptops, I would also point them in the direction of the new Windows laptops that have come out. So these new Meteor Lake chips that they're calling Core Ultra, what do they actually have new? So this generation is now built on their Intel 4 processors, and their GPU has seen huge improvements. So they announced twice the performance per watt for the graphics, and then they made a huge deal about their new NPU, their neural processing unit for AI computation. I'm assuming for now that's not going to be a reason to buy the new Intel laptops, but I still think it's exciting for the future of Windows laptops. It's only coming to the laptop market for now, not to the custom PC enthusiast market, which makes sense because that market hasn't been suffering nearly as much as the Windows laptops. There's a couple models that have released already with the updated Intel chips, and they see huge improvements in graphics, in efficiency, and general battery life because of the more efficient chip. And that's all amazing to see, but some of these laptops are also just really uniquely and well designed. The XPS laptops, for example, look absolutely insane. They have this unique, clean, no trackpad look, which I'm a huge fan of. This design language was already kind of started with the XPS 13 Plus, and that laptop was honestly great, but now that the chip is performing way closer to M2 than before, it's a much safer recommendation to make. The screen is pretty much objectively better than the MacBook Air, because when you put them next to each other, the bezels on the MacBook Air honestly look kind of embarrassing, and the XPS is OLED, but the MacBook is still IPS. It's pretty premium with a starting price of $1,300 USD, but if you were considering an M2 MacBook Air, this is another option that's perfectly fine if you prefer this design, or you just prefer Windows, which is fair enough. There's also the Asus ZenBook 14, which is also OLED, has the same Intel chip, pretty good design, but I don't think it looks as cool as the XPS, and it's also pretty premium with the same starting price as the XPS. And then if you want a laptop specific for gaming, there's the Asus Zephyrus G14 and G16s, which haven't been fully reviewed yet, but they have the new Intel chips, and that's going to allow for way better gaming specific performance. And speaking of gaming, we've known for a while now that Windows has always been the best option. If you get a Mac, you're not only limiting the number of games that you can play, but you're also limiting the performance that you're going to get in the few games that you can play. And being able to play those games requires you to use Apple's game porting toolkit, which which basically uses Meteor, which is an Apple program that powers hardware accelerated graphics on Apple devices, and it just gets passed through this translation layer so that you can run those games. But there's a whole process behind it, and I don't think they really intend it for people who just want to play Windows games on a Mac to go through the whole process. I think for now, it's just for developers to see what their games look like on a Mac and see what they need to change. Different games are at varying levels of the performance that you can expect from them. And it's really cool that Apple is taking these slow steps towards having the games that we would normally associate as being only on Windows to finally have them on Mac, even if it's not happening just right now. But that's all I have to say. I'm really happy that these new Windows laptops are not letting MacBooks completely dominate the entry-level laptop market anymore. Obviously, it's a different story when you start looking at the high end, but I just wanted to give a couple recommendations for people who are just in the entry-level laptop space and are just the average person doing normal things. So huge thanks for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed or found it useful, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.